welcome, guys. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever it is that you're watching this. I want to always remind you, actually, I'm going to pull out of this for a second, remind you of the what, why, and how of City Life groups. Okay, what are you expected to do? You're expected to lead your growth City Life group by being a shepherd. Okay, why are we doing this? We want to build community and discover application, and we do that by remembering God and His mission, and then react by joining. So always want to remember what we're trying to do here, why we're trying to do it, and how we go about doing it. So brand that onto your forehead if you can. Oops, see Daisy, I just memorized everything. Apologize. Okay, now here we are in today's lesson, talking about Ezra and Nehemiah. So Pastor Chris is here with us as well. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Hello. Chris just gave a compelling and moving sermon about. I got saved again. About Ezra and Nehemiah, the restoration period, and these ideas of boats and all kinds of stuff. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's the format. It's just 4 little sections, 1 page, real simple. So for you previous growth group leaders, you've seen how much I wrote before. Look at this. This is just a thing of beauty, I believe. This is what happens when Chris gets involved. Things just get more simple and better. So me and Chris and G have been going through and crafting this stuff. So hopefully this makes sense. We're going to begin every lesson with an icebreaker. Okay. Our goal is to kind of make this a little mechanical for you at first, because this is only your second time meeting together. And so we're kind of trying to force a little bit by doing some icebreaker stuff. But ultimately the goal for it to be a very organic time of building relationships. But at first here, we want to kind of have some canned things prepared as well. So here's your question to kind of start out with, and try to be Rico Suave about this. Don't be like, okay, let's sit down and have our icebreaker question. Like, try not to do that. Hey guys, we're going to get started. Let's just sit down. We're going to begin with this question. Have you ever in your life not done something because you were afraid? Okay, and I said, I'll go first. Okay, so you, the leader, go first. I was supposed to jump off a cliff and I didn't do it. Whatever. I was supposed to ask this girl out, but I didn't do it. Whatever it might be. I was supposed to go go to Uganda on a mission trip. I just didn't do it. Whatever. It could be small. It could be large. Whatever. But the whole point here is just to get to know one another and just to share some stories, preferably funny stories. So again, you and your other co-leaders try to think about some things you can kind of bring to the table and get the ball rolling and help people understand. But again, the whole point of this icebreaker thing is just to get to know one another.
Yeah, and think about breaking ice, not bringing tears. So this isn't the time to have your biggest repentant moment and salvation
That's
experience necessarily. But something lighthearted.
Yeah.
And we're going for practical. So don't be uber, super, that's Randy's word, uber. Spiritual.
Actually a German word.
And you know what I mean by everything spiritual. But don't take it too far extreme, because again, the goal, and some of you might be in groups and you're going, we know everybody here. Well, that might be the problem. We want you to add more people, and there's so many new people coming to church every week. Invite them to your group, and we want them to feel like, okay, we're trying to get to know you, and you get to know us, and kind of thinking about that. So lighthearted.
And honestly, if that's your place, we know everybody in our group. We've all been in the same group for the past 2 years. Honestly, that means next week you should go ahead and multiply that group, and we'll start 2 groups out of yours, and you start inviting people new from church, from your workplace, and do that. Because again, remember, with leadership development, we're trying to get more groups. We're not trying to have any mega groups of 50 people, right? We want trying to build some good, intimate gospel communities. So Chris said it beautifully. This is supposed to be lighthearted, fun, get to know you, kind of an easy way into this. Please don't just read this paper mechanically to them. Okay, our first point is the icebreaker. First question that Randy and Chris have done. Okay, don't do that, please. Okay, hey, listen, here's what we're doing. Have everybody in your life ever done this? Who wants to, let me go first. I'll share me, and then call any other leaders, people, hey, you, why don't you go first? Everybody go around, or we'll start with you. We'll just go around a big circle, and we'll finish with you. Boom, okay? Again, fun, lighthearted, have a good time, okay? Then you can transition and say, okay, well, this past Sunday sermon, we, key word here, okay, Chris does not like, if you say Chris talked about, and I hate it, and the previous growth gets me to say, well, Randy talked about, okay, not what we're talking about here. Okay, this past sermon, because we are a church together, we talked about Ezra and Nehemiah, talked about boats, restoration. Here's the takeaway. Here's what the sermon was saying. Here's the point Chris was trying to make, is you need to go, and you need to go wisely. Okay, and we remember, for y'all who were there this past Sunday, you know this, but if you don't, you can get the podcast and listen to it. But we talked about the 3 different types of boats, right? There's the boats that are just on the shore. Maybe they're getting repaired, or maybe they're just being comfortable. Who knows? And there's the kind of boats that are at the bottom of the sea, because they're boats that are in the water, but the water has gotten all up in their boat and they've sunk. Or you have the boats that are doing what boats are meant to do, which is to be on the water and in the water, but not have any water in them. That's a boat's function. So Jesus and everything in the world tells us to go and be on mission. But like Israel, right? Israel in the beginning, they were amongst all the nations, but they became just like the nations. Their boat sank. Ezra and Nehemiah very wisely, okay, got out of the water and said, we need to repair our boats. We need to dock the boats. We need to get out of the water. We got some broken things and fix that. So, and that's good for them at that time. But as Chris talked about, they did that for the next 400 years. They forgot that they were boats and thought they were just sand, and so they stayed on the shore. So again, you've got to go, get out into the world, be a part of the world, make disciples, but you've got to go wisely, okay? So you kind of reemphasize that. Honestly, for me, I don't know if Chris can correct me, I think it'd be a good thing at this point, too, to even ask people if they had any questions or thoughts about the sermon. Again, protect your pastors. This isn't a time to gossip and say, oh, I don't like the way Chris did this, or the way Randy's shirt was not matching his pants, or something that I would do, right? Or the fact that Randy said that word at church, I can't believe it, right? Not the point of it. The point is, did you understand the message? Oh, I wasn't there this Sunday. Oh, well, this is kind of the main point, right? So just kind of summarizing and bringing in Sunday morning sermon, okay? Then I want you to go ahead and read John 17, and Chris is going to go ahead and read that text for us.
So it says this, but now I am coming to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and your world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world, and for their sake I consecrate myself, that they also may be sanctified in truth. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me.
Awesome. Couple key things in that verse we're really trying to focus on, right? Is and then Chris read it. It's in verse 15. It says, I do not ask you to take them out of the world representing water and them being a boat. Okay? I don't want you to take them out of the water, but I want you to protect them from the evil one. Right? Jesus saying, listen, you're created to be out in the midst of the world, be in the midst of it, but don't let it get in the midst of you. Then also in verse 18, he says again, as you've sent me into the world, so now I've also sent them. It's that missional go kind of focus. And then verse 21 ends, he's saying, hey, let's all be unified. Let's all be one. Why? He says, so that the world may believe that you sent me. So this is what we're trying to do. This is the emphasis we're trying to say here. So we talked about that. Now today, what we're going to focus on is why don't we go? Or why when we do go, we end up turning and looking just like the world, right? Why don't we get out of our comfort zones and get out there and really get on mission and really share the good news with everybody in the world? And how then do we go wisely? What does that look like for us?
Yeah, and so for us, this isn't a time for teaching, or you notice we're going straight into discussion questions, because we would rather lead people to truth and have them talk and think, as opposed to just, them sit there and listen to you rant on about whatever it is you want to talk about and concerning this for the next 15 minutes. So that's not the goal of the group. The goal of the group is just to discuss and apply. So we wanted to go straight into discussion questions. And so kind of that overview, they got an idea, the sermon, and honestly, we tried to make these that even if they didn't go to the sermon, or didn't hear it or didn't get the podcast, that they'll still be able to contribute and understand a little bit. So they don't even need a ton of context, because we're going to get the discussion going. So the first question here is, does anyone have a story of how someone else helped you overcome a fear that you could not have overcome by yourself, i.e. a parent, coach, friend, church? And then we ask you to keep it short. There's not time for everyone to answer. So you might even just have to call on a few people. If there's like a lull in the room, and this applies for everything, if there's like this lull and nobody goes, it's always good for you to go first. Or really nice to have, whether it's your spouse or co-leader or somebody that has some level of responsibility, prep them to say, hey, if count to 15, and if nobody says anything, you chime in. Yeah. Now we want to give people opportunity to chime in, so it doesn't always have to be one of us or a leader. But that dead air, like in radio, is killer, but sometimes when somebody else goes first, they get in the water first, everybody else feels comfortable to start diving in and say, oh, it's not so cold, let's jump in. And so
and even if the other thing too, if you've done that a couple of times, like I have, and it feels awkward and you hate it, instead of just asking, hey, does anyone have a story? why don't you call on a couple people, or not in this instance.
Voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold some people. Hey, Chris, why don't you go ahead and share a story or something like that? Especially if you already talked with them, and let them go ahead and get the ball started. This one again, not everybody's asking it, but just think about it. Be creative of how you can get more and more people involved and try to get. Because keep it in mind, you might have, and hopefully you have, and you should have. Some new people that are new to our church, and so they're not going to just pipe in and jump up and talk most of the time.
Yeah, and sometimes people just don't really understand the question,
Exactly.
Especially if they're not looking at it. So it is good for you to go first, because
Kind
then
of
they
model
go,
it, yeah.
oh, okay, I see kind of what he was trying to ask. So
exactly.
the question: does anyone have a story how someone else helped you overcome a fear that you could not have overcome yourself? The reason why we have that question there is that. For us, this is kind of starting the process of where we're taking him. So each question is kind of building a little bit more and trying to see, hey, you can't do everything on your own. You need community, and that's kind of leading us where we're going. So,
can you think of something right now on the fly, Chris? How you can answer that question?
Someone help me overcome a fear.
You can do that yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, just swimming alone. I used that earlier, but my dad threw me in the swimming pool, and I wouldn't have jumped without him throwing me in, and then the lifeguard saving me. But I was a pretty timid kid, so I mean, and again, that could be lighthearted. It could get deep real quick.
Yeah.
So you as a leader, again, you don't have to know everything, but there's some art of redirection and trying to think through some of that. So be thinking about that. But we are taking people somewhere, and the first thing we want to get to know you. We want to hear your story, and we want you comfortable talking to us. Because if you're comfortable talking about these things that might be lighthearted, it's going to get you to a point, and especially new people, to where they're more comfortable praying and getting more intimate. So getting into the deep areas.
Yeah, exactly. So the second question after you get from that, have a couple people share. Again, you have to really work hard to feel the room. Get a feel. So if somebody comes in like the second person, they drop this bomb, this emotional bomb, right? Then just maybe you need to move on at that point, right? But if you have 3 or 4 people kind of lighthearted stories, you can do another one, that's fine. But if somebody gets real serious on the room, like, well, okay, and time to move on to the number B or letter B. So this is a rhetorical. You see here in the red, this is a rhetorical question. So we all need help from other people to accomplish things we cannot do alone. That's just a fact. Nobody got their job by themselves. Nobody got alive without parents. Nobody stayed alive without parents, our family members, our friends, or help you get through it. So nobody that got through college without school loans. So everybody needs help getting through things, okay? If you need other people's help for your individual mission, how much more so is this true for the ultimate mission of God, okay? That's huge, right? The ultimate mission of God is not going to happen just by one person, right? Even Jesus delegated responsibility to other people as well. Jesus didn't just say, I got this by myself, I'm a lone ranger. He did it inside a community. So if he needed community, how much more so do we, right? So what are some biblical examples to show why this statement is true? I just gave you one. Jesus did not do it by himself. The book of Acts is full of Paul even wasn't by himself and all the things he had going on. Moses had Aaron, had his sister, had Joshua. I mean, who else? What's another one?
There's everything.
Gideon had the 300. I mean, he didn't smite the armies. David had his mighty men. I mean, everybody has had community to help get through these things. The ultimate mission of God is not something that just happened because one guy stepped up and made everything happen. You got to have community. The big take home for me is if Jesus needed community, I need community. And that's really what we're trying to get to this point. Listen, hey, we can't do this alone. It's impossible, right? So they're here. So what do we as a church family want you to do? What are we asking all of our City Life groups to do? How is our communal application of God's mission? How do we join the story of his glory? Okay, and then I just read this and listen. We are asking, not Chris and Randy are asking, we are asking that you to commit to this group every week and you commit to being authentic, or simply put, to show up and open up. Can you just make this weekly thing a priority as often as you can? If you can't make it every week, just make it as often as you can. If you can only make it once a month, we'll take it. Okay, whatever you can do, get here and help us to build community and to make authentic community, those kind of things.
Yeah, and here for us, the goal isn't for people to go. We're talking about going and going wisely. The goal is for people to go to the nations and go preach the gospel everywhere. We're trying to just take some baby steps here and saying, honestly, the goal, and this is why we're starting, this is the very first one that we're doing at City Life Groups, just saying, hey, go with us. Right. Go with us in communicating and talking. Commit yourself to this group. Just a small baby step. We're asking you in the first group, hey, finish this out with us as we're developing community.
Give us a semester. Let's see how it feels. Yeah, and again, we'll keep adding different little, hey, what can we do? What is our kind of communal thing? Again, we all have individual callings inside of City Life Group, okay? But we are all doing City Life Groups together as a church. That's kind of our communal versus individual application, okay? And as you know, I don't know, we're asking you to commit to these things. You're not really asking a question, and you're really not asking for commitment right there on the spot.
Right.
You're just telling them, hey, we want you to do this kind of thing, and this is something you can follow up with later after the group, like the next upcoming week. Like, hey, so glad. Like, honestly, that's what I would do after I've said this. After, let's say if my group was on Tuesday nights, then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'd be sending out emails and texts to everybody in the group. Hey, so glad to see you. So glad you're here with us. Man, can you commit? Can you be here with us and really help us to do that? That's not a good idea to you, or do you have some problems that would keep you from doing that? Where are you at? And just follow up. Be a good shepherd, right? Yeah. And then we wanted to end here with E, kind of on a positive note. Just, hey, how can being a committed part of this group practically help you stay on mission of God? Right? Because we, as Christians, right, especially, we want to be on the mission of God. We want to be evangelizing and disciple people. We want to be pleasing God and doing things. But how does community, and specifically this community, how can this be a positive thing for you? And this is what I would do. I would go around and let everybody answer. I'd start again and talk to myself. So for me, I put this one here on the last one here. I put accountability to not worship comfort. Because if I have a group that I'm committed to and they're expecting me to be there, then that's going to keep me from just staying at home and watching episodes of MASH all night long. MASH is still good. And so this is going to keep me from doing that, right? But other people might say, well, yeah, we just get encouragements, reminders about the gospel, things I already know. Or maybe I don't know anything about the gospel, and so this is going to help me do that. Or just people to pray with me, just even accountability, whatever it might be do. But hey, yeah, man, I really need community for this reason. Fill in the blank. How does that do? Make everybody go around and give some sort of answer, help them out, coach them if they need to do that as well. So, and then afterwards, we try to end as many as we can here thinking about God. So, God, after Chris's sermon this past Sunday, after our time together, what have we learned about God? Again, here we're not looking for anything specific. We're just trying to think about God and who He is, and get the focus off of ourselves all the time. Because right here we're talking about me, how to help me. But really, what are we learning about God? Answers could be about His character, His ways, His priorities. God cares about community. God did not create me to be isolated. God does all kinds of different things about me and how God created things.
Yeah, and I think it's good to ask the question if you have time. You might be running out of time by this point, so you might just be thinking about that. Need to just answer it for yourself.
Sure.
Because people need to see you worshiping, you applying as the leader, so you're showing them in essence how to do that.
Absolutely.
So then we're going to go just into a prayer time, and the way we want to do this is not, hey, everybody jump right into prayer, because some people, and we've talked to people, are uncomfortable praying in public by themselves, like they've never done it before, and so we want to baby step people even into that process, thinking about that. So G says, you as the leader, pray and thank God for His mission and sending specific people to help you. Ask 2 or 3 others if they would pray this prayer of thanksgiving as well. So you're starting. So this first prayer is a group prayer, and this is kind of what you're going to see in all of the growth groups. We're going to try to do a group and then go down into individual partners, gender specific. So we want you to start it, and we always start prayer. You know this, but hopefully we're emphasizing it with thanksgiving. We're not asking God. I always like to say, God, before I ask you for anything, I praise you for everything. And then I go into...
I remember who you are.
Yeah, I go into thanksgiving. Look at what you've done. And you're modeling prayer for people. I want you to think of it like that. And so you're starting it. You're gathering everybody. You're praying out loud. And you're doing that. It doesn't have to be a perfect prayer, so don't be intimidated. But just you're being thankful. You can ask a couple of other people to do it. But then the goal is H, to get people in a gender, partner specific, pray for each other's personal and practical needs. And this is where, honestly, we hope they're praying and applying, like, Lord, help me build community and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we just want to care for people. Part of shepherding is, hey, dagging a sheep, doing whatever you have to do to help them. And so it could be, as we always say, Aunt Bancy's big toe, whatever it is. We're not going to do this all night, right? We're going to give, hey, pray with somebody for about 5 minutes. You keep them accountable, and just have a time there where everybody's getting some kind of personal touch to be able to pray. I would say also at G, I didn't mention in the group prayer, this is a time with wisdom to talk about us being spirit-empowered people. Yeah. This is the time to, again, with wisdom, but somebody might have a word of knowledge or feel like, hey, I was praying, I saw this vision or whatever. Like, I think we don't need to be afraid of that. No. I think it's good to build that,
pursue that,
and do that more. So, especially knowing some of our other leaders and spiritual gifts. I mean, this is the time to be able to do that. Now, I would caution from yelling loudly in tongues, yet at least right away, because read 1 Corinthians 14. But this is an option maybe to practice some prophetic and some different other giftings. Somebody needs healing and you know it. Let's pray for them. Have some group dynamic there and allow some freedom there, and then we'll get personally being able to pray for people's specific needs.
And I was even going to say that with H too. Both anytime, right? We talked about in the training video, right? We want to give more clarity and really prepare ourselves to pray more. Not just kind of, okay, well, we got to end the lesson, so now we're going to transition to a time of prayer. Like, no, this is a really important time to bring healing. That's why we said, hey, because this whole lesson is about community. We need to talk about that because we say go, but then go wisely. The first step in a wise goer is that they don't go by themselves. Right? A sniper never defeats an army, ever. He might put a dent, but it'll never hurt him. He'll never defeat him. So you need to have an army to go against another army, and the evil one has an army of people. So if you're by yourself, you're in trouble. So we're praying and thanking God. Thank you for sending specific people to help me. I pray for my brother, or for Chris, or for Eleanor, or even some of the troubles that got sent my way that really led me to repentance. Thank you, God, for these types of things, right? And use your gifts, like Chris said in there. But also with H, if I split up and me and Terrence are partners together, and I'm praying for Terrence, like, don't be afraid to spend some time praying if your group allows for it. And I would beg you and try to plan on that and use your gifting with that as well. How can I personally, practically speak? God, give me a word. As I'm praying for Terrence, I don't want to just pray, the simple things, but God, give me a word for Terrence. Or God, maybe Terrence has got some issues, and God, pray for some deliverance right now on the spot. So be bold with this prayer time. Natalie and Scott and Aisha, Darwish, we'll be doing some training stuff with us later, kind of helping us out with some of this stuff. But we really, really want to push you guys, however far you've been doing that, do it a little bit farther. Be a little bold. Again, Chris said, be wise, right? Don't be just running around screaming in tongues our first lesson together. But also be bold at the same time. So be ready to go and be the part of that kind of thing as well. So that's it. I would say as they split into their individual partners, then just say, hey, when you're done praying, you can go, or you can hang out and talk, or whatever you got to do. We're done. So again, the big things from here, just practically help yourself with your transitions. Don't be so cold and rigid. Okay, our first step is this. Our second is this. Try to think about that beforehand. Honestly, that should be most of your prep work. Your prep work. I don't know what you're saying, Chris. What?
And the big we.
We
language.
We language. Yeah, practice that. We are a church. This is what we are saying. We are doing this kind of thing. And if you struggle with that because your conscience won't allow you, please, dear God, call me or Chris and let us know what your problem is and how we can help with that. If you need more clarity, or if you just struggle theologically with something, please talk to us. But again, this shouldn't be a theological problem for any of you. We're saying that you need to go and get on mission, and we're saying that you need community to do that. So if you have a problem with that, definitely let's talk. But yeah, big thing. Think about your transition. When we get to this point, if you're talking about God or how to, man, let's pray together as a group, guys. Let's pray. Let me pray over us. I pray. I thank God. Okay, hey, why don't you split up and grab a partner and go? So think about this. Try to be a little bit more smooth. Don't be so rigid with things. So we love you guys. We're so proud of you. We're so glad that you have joined the mission of God and the mission of CLC by being a City Life Group leader. We could not do this church without you guys. We definitely could not do it well without you. Me and Chris are limited in our talents and our greatness to a great degree, and you guys make up for so many defaults that we have. So thank you so much for stepping into these roles and shepherding well and jumping into this. We're so proud of you. Let us know if there's any way we can encourage you or help you guys out. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.